Internet friends, I have a confession to make. After playing with the RG28XX from Anbernic, I kind of resigned myself to not getting a Miyoo A30. If you're in the know, and I'm sure all of you are, then you probably know that when the A30 first came out and was pitted against Anbernic's RG28XX, it fell a little bit short. The stock OS just didn't match up to Anbernic's steadily improving stock OS, and there were very few other options for the A30 on the outset. This made me very sad, because as you all know, I'm a huge fan of the Miyoo Mini Plus and Onion OS, and had hoped beyond all hopes that I'd get a horizontal Miyoo Mini that worked with Onion OS with this release. And that just didn't happen, and continued not to happen. And you know what? I kind of forgot about the A30 as an influx of new devices came in to fill its place in my thoughts, until Geek Goo reached out to me and asked me if I'd like a review unit. And of course I said, heck yeah, I'm gonna do it. And what good timing it was, because as soon as the A30 arrived in my mailbox, I heard whisperings of a new custom firmware for the A30. Now was the perfect time to review this device. Before we dive into OS options and improvements though, let's take a look at the A30 itself. I requested and was sent the black and white version. The A30 comes in several other very retro-inspired colorways, but I think this black and white one just looks so very nice. I adore these bright red buttons. This neat little carrying case came with the device, along with a USB charging cable and a USB-C to headphone jack adapter, since the A30 doesn't actually have a headphone jack. I love this carrying case and its cute little details, like the zipper pull and the little D-ring that you can attach charms or maybe a carrying strap to. The A30 itself is just as charming. When I originally saw the pictures on the device, I felt like it fell short on the cuteness factor when compared to the RG28XX. But what I didn't take into account, because I hadn't seen it in person with my own eyes at this point, was that it's just very clean and smart, especially the black and white model. There's something very console-like about the aesthetics of the A30 that I quite enjoy. The pictures really don't do it justice, I think. Having this in my hands, I was surprised that I actually love how this looks. Friends, to be honest, this was not how I felt about the device when I saw the preview pictures. Now, despite not having Onion OS, there are still a lot of things to love about a device from Miyoo. The A30's face buttons and D-pad feel very familiar, especially this D-pad, which is very comparable to my Miyoo Mini Plus's D-pad. I've always liked the way the buttons felt on my Miyoo devices, and this is no exception. There's a very nice, crisp press to these buttons. I tend to like buttons that are smoother rather than clicky, so these are great for me. I prefer this D-pad to the 28XX's firmer, smaller D-pad, although both are pretty serviceable. Now these shoulder and trigger buttons, they're so nice. I wasn't expecting them to be, mainly because I've had no experience with Miyoo and inline shoulder buttons like these, but they've just got this perfect press to them that feels at once responsive and light, not clicky at all. If I've got to pinpoint a hard win for the A30 over its Anbernic competitor, I'd have to say that these shoulder and trigger buttons are it. In comparison, the 28XX's small, clicky, rattly shoulder and trigger buttons are inferior in pretty much every way. Speaking of hard wins, the A30 also has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which makes it infinitely easier to update and add files to. I spent about an hour the other day installing the newly OS on my RG28XX, and found that I was at a standstill when it came to Portmaster, because in order to get that to work, I needed Wi-Fi access, which the RG28XX doesn't have built in. On the one hand, I enjoy a device that's cut off from the internet, because then I don't ever have to worry about logging onto Wi-Fi and finding a hotspot when I'm out and about. It's kind of freeing to just have it as is, untethered. But also, having options is nice. And I'm glad that the A30 gives me some extra ones in terms of connectivity. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about custom firmware. The most promising one right now for the A30 is Spruce OS. It doesn't exactly fulfill all of my Onion OS hopes and dreams, but that's not what it's meant to do at all. What it does do, and does well I think, is provide a very clean and simple gaming experience that gets you to the games you want to play and the functions you need to use without fuss or bloat. For a device with such a small screen, I don't think we need super fancy emulation station level themes. The A30 is an on-the-go, always in your pocket, ready at any moment device. And an OS that allows you to get a game going as smoothly as possible is one that fits this use case perfectly. I was able to get native Pico 8 going on this thing with minimal fuss as well, and I love the ability to log on to Explore and browse the featured games list for any updates. Keep in mind that I did have some difficulties with Explore, taking a long time to download games and timing out several times, so I can say that the Wi-Fi connection on the A30 isn't the best it could be. I've also heard from other people that Wi-Fi can be hit or miss, but it is better than no Wi-Fi, I think. Hopefully this will be fixed with more updates to Spruce OS or more custom firmware options in the future. In terms of gaming though, this thing works well. Everything I'd like to play on it works. I even like how Nintendo DS plays on this, and I can see myself taking this out and working through some Animal Crossing Wild World to practice some Japanese while in the doctor's office waiting room. For these smaller devices, I'd say that the core 8 and 16-bit retro games are what I'd personally stick with, but as I said before, it's nice to have options. Spruce OS is very easy to get running on a new microSD card, and I love that the themes folder is easily accessible, so I can make little tweaks to existing themes if I wanted to. And I did want to. Don't you think everything looks just a tiny bit better in cotton candy pink? So anyway, the Miyoo A30. I love it actually. I think it's gonna go in my permanent pocket rotation along with the Miyoo Mini Plus and the RG28XX. I love having a smaller device that I can stick nearly anywhere that sticking is required. And this one is surprisingly just as lovely as the RG28XX. You guys, you know how I feel about DMG aesthetics, so it's a sentiment to how much I love this thing that I'm constantly waffling between it and my DMG themed RG28XX. At this point, I feel like it's almost impossible to review either one of these devices without mentioning the other, which is why I haven't bothered to try in this video. Now, there's no clear-cut winner for me when it comes to which of these micro handhelds is better than the other. There are so many factors to consider. The A30 has Wi-Fi, which opens up a bunch of cool quality of life features that the 28XX doesn't have. It also has arguably better controls, with that extra joystick opening up some gaming options for you. However, if you're someone who prefers to be able to stick your headphones into a dedicated headphone jack, or perhaps enjoy having a more robust theme system with your custom firmware, you're not going to like the A30 as much. There's also the thing about the select button on top of the start button that I know really bothers some people and has messed me up a few times too. So yeah, it all really depends on where your priorities and personal aesthetics lie. I'm so thankful that I don't have to choose between the two because Geek Goo was kind enough to send me this review unit, but I'm sure that whichever one of these you do choose, you'll have a nice pocket friend to take with you everywhere. If you do end up choosing the A30 and would like to order one from Geek Goo, I've got their products linked in the description below. That's it for today, internet friends. Tell me, which one of these micro handhelds do you prefer, and what colorway did you end up choosing? If you don't like either of these options, is there another always in your pocket device that's won your heart? Let me know in the comments below. As always, please be kind to yourself, be kind to everyone else, and happy gaming. Bye bye.